The girl appeared at the fence line just before dusk, when the land went quiet and the cattle settled into shadows. She stood there as if the earth had pushed her up through the dust, barefoot, dress torn at the hem, hair knotted with wind and fear. The rancher saw her from the porch, a still shape against the dying light, and felt something old tighten in his chest. He did not ask her name when she stepped onto the porch. He did not ask where she came from or why her hands shook like leaves caught between seasons. He gave her water first, then bread, then a blanket that smelled of sun and horse. She ate like someone who had learned not to trust kindness, taking small bites, eyes lifting at every sound. "You can stay the night," he said, voice steady, as if nights were something he gave away often. She nodded and slept on the couch, curled in on herself, whispering words into the fabric that he pretended not to hear. Outside, coyotes cried. Inside, the clock ticked, loud as a heartbeat. In the morning, she helped herself to chores without being asked. She swept the porch, washed her cup, followed him at a careful distance as he checked the fences. She moved like someone trying not to leave a mark. When he asked if she knew how to ride, she shook her head, but her eyes lingered on the horses as if they were memories she had misplaced. Days passed. The ranch settled around her, accepted her the way land accepts rain. She learned where the boards creaked, which gate stuck, how to read the rancher's silences. He noticed the way she flinched when voices rose, the scars on her wrists half hidden by sleeves she never rolled up. Still, he asked nothing. Questions had a way of tearing open what time was trying to stitch closed. At night, she sat on the porch and watched the horizon, fingers wrapped tight around her knees. Sometimes she hummed, a broken tune that carried something mournful and stubborn. The rancher listened from inside, pretending to mend things that did not need mending. Once, a truck slowed on the road. The girl froze. Her breath stopped so suddenly it was as if the world had ended. The rancher stepped between her and the sound without thinking, his shadow long and protective. The truck passed. She exhaled. He did not comment on the way her hands trembled afterward. He learned her habits the way one learns weather. She woke before dawn. She counted her steps. She never asked for more than she was given. When he offered her a spare shirt, she wore it like armor. When he told her she could stay as long as she liked, she stared at him as if he had spoken a language she barely remembered. The past hovered at the edges of her, never stepping fully into the light. He sensed it in the way she studied every new face, every sound from the road. The rancher had his own ghosts, quiet ones that lived in the barn and the empty bedroom down the hall. They did not ask him questions either. On the fifth night, a storm rolled in fast and angry. Thunder cracked the sky open. Rain hammered the tin roof. The power went out, plunging the house into darkness thick as wool. The girl cried out, a sharp, broken sound. He found her crouched on the floor, hands over her ears, rocking as if she could make herself smaller than fear. "It's just weather," he said, lighting a lantern. He held it low, not wanting to blind her. "It'll pass." She shook her head, breath coming fast. Words tangled in her throat. He sat on the floor a few feet away, careful not to crowd her, and waited. The storm raged, indifferent to their small human panic. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely there. He used to hate storms. The rancher said nothing. They made him mean, she went on, staring at the floor. He'd say the sky was punishing him. He'd take it out on whatever was closest. The lantern flickered. The rancher's jaw tightened. Still, he did not ask who she meant. Names had weight. They could tip a balance. The storm eased near dawn. She slept, exhausted, while he kept watch, the lantern burning low. In the pale morning light, he noticed a bruise blooming on her shoulder, yellow and purple like a dying flower. He turned away before anger could find a direction. Later that day, a neighbor stopped by with mail and gossip. The girl retreated to the barn, eyes wide. The rancher stood on the porch, posture loose, voice easy. He watched until the neighbor drove away, dust settling like a held breath released. That night, she lingered by the door, unsure. "Do you ever run?" she asked suddenly. He considered the question. "I did," he said. "Once. Didn't help much." She nodded, as if this confirmed something she already knew. The days stretched, stitched together by routine and unspoken understanding. She laughed once, surprised by the sound of it. He smiled and pretended not to notice, as if joy were a shy animal that might bolt if stared at too hard. The name came out of nowhere. They were sitting at the kitchen table, the air thick with heat, cicadas buzzing like loose wires. He was fixing a hinge. She was tracing circles on the wood with her finger. I thought he'd never find me here, she said. I thought you were too far out, too quiet. The rancher glanced up. Who? She swallowed. The word caught, then fell. Caleb. The room tilted. The hinge slipped from his hand, clattered to the floor. For a moment, the only sound was the cicadas, relentless, unaware. He knew that name, had carried it like a stone in his chest for years. Had buried it under miles of fence and acres of dust. Caleb was not a ghost. Caleb was blood. Caleb was the reason the empty bedroom stayed empty. She looked at him then, really looked, and something in her face shifted as recognition sparked, fragile and terrible. Her voice trembled. You know him. The rancher stood slowly, as if sudden movement might break the world completely. His hands felt heavy, useless. The past rushed in, hot and choking. What did he do to you? He asked, and the question scraped its way out, raw and dangerous. Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. He said my name like it belonged to him, she whispered. He said everything belonged to him. The cicadas screamed. The light slanted through the window, catching dust in the air. The rancher took a step toward her, then stopped, the weight of the name hanging between them, sharp as wire, as the road beyond the fence hummed with the promise of someone coming closer. The rancher sat back down, slowly, as if the chair might vanish beneath him. The name still rang in his ears, not loud but persistent, the way a wound aches long after it closes. He watched the girl's hands twist together, knuckles pale, and saw the same nervous habit he had known in another life. Caleb is my brother, he said at last. The words felt unreal, like someone else had spoken them. Was. Her breath hitched. Was. He left, he said. It was easier than explaining how a person could rot from the inside while still walking, still breathing. Years ago. She pushed back from the table, standing too fast. The chair scraped the floor. You lied to me, she said, though there was no accusation in her voice, only fear. I didn't lie, he replied quietly. I just didn't tell you. She paced the kitchen, eyes darting to the door, the windows, as if the walls themselves might betray her. He said he had no family. He said no one would miss him. The rancher closed his eyes. He remembered Caleb's smile, charming and sharp, the way he could erase himself from a room while still owning it. He was good at saying, "Whatever made people stay." She stopped pacing. He's looking for me, she said. I know he is. The rancher nodded. He believed her. Caleb never lost what he claimed. He rose and crossed the room, careful, measured. You're safe here, he said, though the certainty he once felt had cracked. That night, neither of them slept. The girl sat with her back to the wall, knees pulled tight, eyes flicking toward every sound. The rancher cleaned his rifle, hands steady by habit, mind anything but. The land outside lay calm, indifferent, stars scattered like secrets no one meant to keep. Just before dawn, headlights swept across the far fence. The girl gasped, a sound too small to be a scream. The rancher killed the lamp and moved to the window. The truck idled on the road, engine rumbling low, patient. He knew that truck. Had helped fix its transmission once, long ago. Caleb had never cared for quiet entrances. Stay here, he whispered. She grabbed his sleeve. Don't go. He covered her hand with his own. I won't leave. The truck door opened. A figure stepped out, tall, familiar in the way nightmares are familiar. Caleb leaned against the hood, lighting a cigarette, the flare briefly illuminating his grin. Little brother, Caleb called softly, as if testing how the word tasted. Didn't think you'd still be hiding out here. The rancher stepped onto the porch, the boards creaking beneath his boots. You shouldn't be here. Caleb laughed. Still telling me what I should and shouldn't do. His gaze slid past the rancher, sharp and searching. She's with you, isn't she? Inside, the girl pressed herself into the wall, heart slamming against her ribs. She knew that voice, the way it curled around words, turning them into hooks. You're trespassing, the rancher said. Caleb shrugged. So call the law. They both knew he wouldn't. Out here, things settled themselves, or they festered. I just want what's mine, Caleb said, dropping the cigarette, grinding it into the dirt. She ran off with something that belongs to me. She doesn't belong to anyone, the rancher snapped. Caleb's smile sharpened. You always were sentimental. The rancher felt the old anger rise, hot and blinding. He forced it down. Leave, he said. Now. Caleb stepped closer, boots crunching gravel. You think you can protect her? You couldn't even protect. Stop, the rancher growled. For a moment, the air felt tight enough to snap. Then Caleb laughed again, hands raised in mock surrender. Relax. I'll be back. His eyes flicked once more toward the house. She always comes back. The truck roared to life. Dust swallowed it whole. The rancher stood there long after the sound faded, fists clenched, breath ragged. When he turned, the girl was behind him, eyes bright with terror and something else, resolve. He won't stop, she said. No, the rancher agreed. They spent the day packing what little she had. The rancher moved with grim efficiency, loading supplies, checking routes in his head. He hadn't run in years, but he knew how. He knew where the land folded in on itself, where roads vanished into nothing. You don't have to do this, she said, standing by the truck. He paused. I won't leave you, he said simply. They drove at dusk, the sky bleeding color. The ranch fell away behind them, fences shrinking to lines, then to memory. The girl watched the road, counting turns, muscles coiled. They took back roads, dirt paths that wound through scrub and stone. Night settled heavy and close. At one point, headlights flared in the mirror, distant but unmistakable. He found us, she whispered. The rancher accelerated, heart pounding. The road narrowed, twisted. He knew a place ahead, a ravine, shallow but treacherous, hidden by brush. Hold on, he said. The truck lurched as he veered off-road, plunging into darkness. Branches scraped metal. The engine screamed, then stalled. Silence crashed down around them. They sat frozen, listening. The other truck slowed, passed, headlights sweeping uselessly over empty road. The girl sagged against the seat, breath shuddering. Thank you, she murmured. The rancher stared into the dark. He felt no relief, only the certainty that this was not over. They walked the rest of the way, leaving the truck hidden. The land rose and fell beneath their feet, stars wheeling overhead. At an old line shack, half collapsed and forgotten, they rested. The girl slept fitfully, dreams twitching through her. The rancher kept watch. He thought of Caleb as a boy, all charm and fury, the way he could break things without leaving marks. He thought of the girl's whispered name in the dark, of the way fear had carved itself into her bones. Near morning, she woke, eyes clear. He said you were weak, she said quietly. That you ran because you were afraid. The rancher smiled thinly. He always said that. Were you? He considered. I was afraid of what I'd become if I stayed. She nodded, understanding more than he'd expected. They moved again at dawn, deeper into places where roads gave up. The girl's steps grew surer, as if distance itself lent her strength. Once, she stumbled, and he caught her. She did not pull away. By midday, they heard the truck again, closer this time. Caleb's persistence was a weight on the air. They climbed, rocks biting into palms, lungs burning. At the top, the land spread wide and empty. No place left to hide. Caleb emerged from behind a rise, rifle slung casual across his back. You're making this hard, he called. The rancher stepped forward, putting himself between Caleb and the girl. It ends here, he said. Caleb's eyes gleamed. Always did like to play hero. The girl moved then, voice steady despite the shaking in her hands. I'm not going back. Caleb laughed, sharp and ugly. You don't get to decide. The rancher felt something settle in him, heavy and final. He knew this land, knew how quickly accidents happened, how easily the earth swallowed truth. Caleb took a step closer. The girl did not flinch. The wind rose, carrying dust and the distant cry of something wild. The rancher tightened his grip, the past and present colliding in the open, unforgiving light, as the girl stood beside him, no longer hiding, and the name between them burned like a fuse waiting to be lit.